Welcome back to React Native Radio Podcast. Brought to you by the new Apple Vision Pro. Finally, you have something to do while your Tesla drives you to work. Episode 288. Survey says, React Native got more popular?
How do you two like our new recording studio here?
It feels very multifaceted.
Multifaceted.
I was going to say, welcome to the multiverse.
Oh.
The multiverse. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're not all in the same room. That would be awesome. Wouldn't it be cool to have like an actual recording studio we could hang out?
That would be so fun.
That would be cool.
It'd be super fun. But we don't have that. But we do have some new software that we're trying out. It's not really made for recording. We're still recording this locally, and we'll ask Todd and Jed to make us sound good later. But we are using Multi, which is sort of like I guess Screen Hero back in the day. It's kind
of like Screen Hero plus Zoom.
Yeah. They're using the Zoom architecture, and it's really, I don't know, it's kind of a Zoom like alternative, but you can do a lot of really cool stuff with screen sharing, and we've been trying it out lately. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the recording studio is the name of the room that I created.
Specifically for today.
Right. Exactly.
I like it a lot. It's really easy to pair, and because you can like directly take control of the other person's screen, and it just makes it really easy to collaborate on stuff. Yeah,
and there's this really cool feature where you can just draw on the other screen just by clicking and dragging.
Ooh,
and
you shouldn't have told me
it goes away. Oh, great. Now I'm getting graffiti on my screen. Thank you very much. But that's not why we're here. We are here to talk about React Native, and specifically, we're going to be talking about the State of React Native 2023 survey, which I am really excited to dive into. None of us three have actually read through this yet, so this is brand new to us. I have seen one section, which I will talk about when we get to that section, because I had to review it in order to give a quote. But until then, this will all be like authentic reactions to what we're seeing for the first time, which is really fun. But before we do that, let's get a word from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored, as always, by Infinite Red. Infinite Red is a premier React Native consultancy located fully remote in the US and Canada. If you're looking for React Native expertise for your next project, hit us up at infinite.red/React Native. And don't forget to mention that you heard about us through the React Native Radio podcast. Okay, let's get into the State of React Native survey. First off, I want to shout out Software Mansion, who put this together. Really cool that they do this. They started, I think last year was the first year, and now this year they have another edition, so you get to kind of compare the 2 years together. So that's pretty cool. If you want to see this, you can go to results.stateofreactnative.com.
We'll put that in the show notes as well, as always.
So in the intro, one of the things that's catching my eye here is that there are more than 500 new respondents, so almost 2,400 unique respondents to this survey. So getting more and more developers into this survey and representing more viewpoints. So that's pretty cool. 2,400, that's a pretty successful survey in my opinion.
I wonder, I'm honestly curious what the total number of React Native developers out there is, but I don't know if there's any way to ever know for sure.
Yeah, like there's the Stack Overflow survey, and there's also like State of JavaScript survey and a few others. Maybe those would be representative to some degree, but yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. This is like the 24. I wonder how many at Infinite Red actually filled this out, to be honest. I'm really curious.
Surveys are usually harder to take, I feel like. Sometimes they just seem like I hate to say it, but they seem like a time suck. But at the end of the day, getting to see the results like this one are very important. I think other surveys like the Stack Overflow, I remember taking it a couple of years ago. I took it thinking that I would see the results after, but I think it was like really hard to get the results. Unlike this one, that's well advertised, Twitter.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
If you put out a survey like this, you have to make sure you well publicize the results, because
over and
like,
over.
as soon as I took it, I was like, man, I can't wait
Yeah.
to see what other people answered, because it's the reward for putting the time in.
Yeah.
And as someone who has been responsible for surveys, I always take surveys when I'm offered, because I know how annoying it is to put out a survey and have no one take it.
Isn't it funny how it changes once you're in charge of something? You're like, wow, I wish everybody would do this thing. And then you have more compassion for the people putting it together. Yeah.
And it's also good UI they have put in place. There's a lot of charts, which I usually prefer to read.
I wonder if they use something, because I feel like I've seen this UI before. Like this must be a pre-made.
I think it's this similar to the like software mansion like docs. Like the reanimated docs look a lot like this.
True.
Oh, okay. So maybe they did build it. So the first section we're going to look at, we're not going to look at every section, but the first one is about you. So it's demographics. And what stands out to me is that well over half, 57.3% are between 25 to 34, which represents everybody in this call except for myself.
Well, now. Oh,
How
yeah.
old are you, Mazen?
When I took the survey, I was at the 34 mark.
Oh, you're 35
you
now.
turned 35 since the survey.
Since I took the survey.
I forgot that. Oh, good call. Wow. Well, welcome to my demographic, because the next one's 35 to 44, and I'm 42. So
wow,
you're on the bottom end of that. I'm at the top end
you
of
guys
that.
leave me behind. I'm not even 34. I turned 34 in a couple months.
By the way, I said everyone in this call because we do have a couple others hanging out with us right now. They're not talking, but Justin and Jed are in here too, and they're both in this 25 to 34 range as well. There is a very small amount of people. There's
Under
1.2%
there's some under
or under
18.
18 or equal to 18,
Yeah.
it looks like. So my son, Cedric, if he took this survey, probably not. But if he did, he would be in that
He just
tiny
turned 19
percentage.
though, right?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He's 19. Yeah. So the next cohort would be 19 and 24. That's almost 19%. And then above 45%, it's slim pickings. There's 3.4%, 45 to 54. There's 55 to 64 is 0.4%. And there's even someone above 65, maybe 0.1%.
There's like one person out there.
Yeah.
I am so curious to see what these surveys are going to look like in 20, 30 years. Like, what are all of those people in the 25 to 34 category?
Yeah. Is that just
what are we
going to
be doing in 20, 30 years? Are we all just going to be like managers, like not coding anymore? Or is the whole demographic just going to shift and you're going to have a lot of like 50 something, like 60 something?
I predict it's going to be a lot like WALL-E. We're going to be sitting in chairs, sipping on Soylent and watching VR.
With our Apple.
Vision
glasses.
Pro.
Vision Pro.
Vision Pro 14 will have just come out, and yeah.
14.
AI will be writing all of our apps
Interestingly,
anyway.
34% didn't even answer this question. So
Why do you even take the survey?
I know, right? Like, come on.
Interesting.
I think this is a common thing because, like, I'm looking through the answers, and a lot of them are 34%.
There's usually like 34% not answers.
They just
like,
go there,
did you just
hit submit and like check it off. Like, hey, I did it.
why?
Okay, company size. It's all over the board. I don't know if it's worth talking about this one. It looks like everything is just.
Oh yeah, it's
just
really all over the map. Yeah.
Yeah, anything from one person, which is like 8.4%, up to 1,000 people, which is like 11%, and everything else is right in that range, like not very far off.
Country, region, mostly the U.S. Lots of India.
Yeah, but not
Lots
far
of
behind India. Yeah, I mean,
where is
that's
Poland is like fourth down on the list. Which,
Only
6%.
if you compare the size of Poland to the size of the U.S., like they're very well represented in React Native for how
they are.
How big
Now,
they are.
to be fair, the company that put this survey together
Is
is
in
based
Poland.
in Poland. So they're going to have
That's
more
why.
reach there.
That's why
So just, keeping that in mind.
we have two like Callstack and Software Mansion are both Polish.
Yeah, right. But US was only 12.8%. So there's a pretty good representation.
The rest of it is all spread out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very global framework.
Yeah. France is pretty strong. I didn't realize how strong France is. They're 8.2%. Germany, which is right there, is like half that. And then Brazil, like really, coming in with, I think they're number 5 here. So some Canadians.
In Italy, 1.3%. That's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had Ricardo and on the podcast, and Italy's not that high up on here.
Right. There's the UK,
Which makes sense with the Meta offices in London.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine, Turkey, Spain, right? You know, it's interesting looking at this compared to our demographics for React Native Radio and kind of seeing those. We talked about that a little bit in the wrap-up episode for 2023, so go check that out if you want to hear about our demographics. Higher education degree, it looks like... Wait, what does this even mean?
Is higher education
As in,
college
no,
or
you don't have
master's?
one. Yes, you have one, and it's
Oh.
related. Or yes, you have one, but it's not related.
Okay, so 67% have like CS degrees or something similar. And then
I'm trying to remember what I
15%
answered for
have
this one.
unrelated.
Yeah, same.
Because my degree was in math and economics, but not.
Oh, that is a little vague, isn't it?
It is.
It's
I was
a
like,
little
it's
bit.
kind of related, but not. I don't remember what I answered, to be honest. I think I probably put
I would
related.
put unrelated
Really?
for that. Yeah, just simply because we don't do a lot of... I mean, I guess you learn a lot of logic, so that would be applicable. But
So yeah, so it could go either way.
yeah, that's true. I was definitely in the no part of this. No degree. Not even close.
You started a company instead.
Yeah, I
Makes
guess.
sense.
That was an education in and of itself.
Uh-huh.
Years of experience. I actually want to talk about this one for sure. So less than 14%.
2 to 3.
2 to 3 years.
Most people came in 2 to
39%.
3 years ago, which is really encouraging, because that's
Yes.
like 2 to 3 years ago is really kind of when React Native got stable and a lot of
Yeah.
bigger companies started adopting it. And so
Robin, how many years of React Native experience do you have?
summer 2017 is when I started. So
7 years. Almost.
6.5.
So you are solidly in the
Solidly.
top group. 16%.
As is, I mean, a lot of Infinite Red is.
Most Infinite Red is up there. Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. Again, that 34% no answer.
What are you guys doing?
I don't know. Years of total experience, it looks like, and this is a little different,
6 to
but
10,
because
6
it goes
to
up to
10,
20.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. Right.
I switched my career to coding 10 years ago. Almost, oh my gosh, almost to the day.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. I actually want to go look back. I'm pretty sure it was like first week of February that I started my coding boot camp in 2014.
Is that right?
wow.
Wow.
That's so
amazing.
cool.
That is cool. 10 years. Yeah.
10 years.
That's something to celebrate. And then gender.
This one makes me sad, but
really?
I think it got better from 2022, but it's not great.
Yeah. So let's look at count. So 1,477 male,
49.
49 female,
Oh, wow.
And then there's
12 non-binary.
Non-binary.
And what's NL?
not
Not listed?
listed or something.
Maybe?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But I mean, we're talking, 49 versus 1,477.
Yeah,
So
Wow.
it's something to work on.
yeah,
I
it
gotta
is.
tweet more.
Our percentage is better than that in Infinite Red. I will say that.
Yeah.
My whole team, the team I'm on right now, is all women.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's most of the demographic. There's a few other things you can look at there. Let's look at developer background. So before React Native, we were just talking about this. So before React Native,
There we go.
the majority were React web developers.
React
looks like.
front
Front
end
end.
60%.
but like if you combine React developer and front end developer other than React, it's like almost.
Wait, that
are those
doesn't make sense.
percentages.
That's over 100%.
That's
Well,
not,
people did multiple things. You could choose multiple.
Oh, you could choose multiple. Okay.
Yeah, so like over 100%, but that's okay.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so then there's back-end developers like PHP, Node, JVM, like Java, Python. That's
Which is
39%.
what I think that's what I answered. Because I was doing Rails.
14% started with React Native. So that's pretty interesting. As far as the native developers, it's 13% and 12% Android and iOS respectively. So, some native developers, not as many. The vast majority were either web front end or some back end developers. And then there's a few desktop developers.
It really backs up your claim about the advantage of React Native over things like Flutter, because you have this entire population of front-end web developers, specifically React developers, but JavaScript in general, who can make the transition easily to React.
And I also see that in the same vein as being a React developer makes it very easy to transition to React Native. 61%, it seems like, made that transition from React to React Native. That's actually something we could talk about on a different podcast, where like we're working right now, Jamon, you and I and Ghent, on like putting together an education course. That's like a hard prerequisite. Like, do you have React background or even just JavaScript in general? Do you have that background? If you do, you can then take the beginner course, kind of like we do for Chain React. And if you don't, then, you know, here are some prerequisite classes to take before you attend.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is vital. I mean, at the end of the day, we're pretty much doing React, adding a little spice to it to make it native.
Yeah, that's right. Next, we have open source contribution to React Native libraries. 32% say yes, which is a pretty healthy percentage. That's awesome. 64% no. And for some reason, everybody filled this one out.
Right.
There were only 3.2% who didn't.
And maybe a bunch of them just didn't want to answer any demographic questions, I'm guessing.
Oh, you know what? You're probably
That makes
right.
sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay, yeah, because the rest of these contribution to React Native core,
8%.
8%
That,
have.
that tracks, I
so-
think, for me.
It makes
Yeah.
sense because I think one of the gripes with React Native was it was hard or to know where to begin or how to begin. And I think most people just jump into a PR, but
And there's so
a
so
process
much
before.
context that
Yeah.
like it feels like only
Yeah.
people at Meta have
Yeah.
for how the internals work.
Yeah, if you haven't, then 89%, you're in the 89%, which obviously it'd be nice to improve that, but it's also a hard problem because, like you said, it's a pretty complex system.
I always struggle with the industry sector questions on surveys because I feel like the list of industry sectors is like really antiquated and hasn't like caught up
so
with
true.
like modern day career paths. And for technology, it's always there's like one bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just like technology.
technology. Or even worse, it'll say computers. I just remember one time filling out a form for when I like started my business. I was filling out a tax form or something in Washington State, and the category I was in was like logging, gambling, and other. It was named logging, gambling, and other, or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
It was so
Wow.
ridiculous.
The list that was provided here for this survey was better than most because it had
Yeah.
at least it had consulting and services, crypto and Web3, programming and technical tools.
Right.
And then a large number of people said finance.
Yeah, that was the number one.
Yeah, by a lot.
With 20%, and then education was number two with 16%, entertainment 13%, which is no, social media is down there with 9.2%. Consulting was just above that, 10%. And then just in order, crypto, logistics, programming technical tools, travel, transport, automotive, news media, and it kind of goes down from there. Very long tail of different things: energy, manufacturing, cybersecurity. Yeah, that's an interesting one. A lot of different industries. React Native doesn't just go into one particular type of industry. Although I will say, finance being number one is kind of mind blowing to me.
That's a
Like I want to know where all those people are working.
Well, I know Chase uses it, like J.P. Morgan Chase.
Yeah.
so does Coinbase. So I guess they consider
Oh, yeah,
themselves
true.
finance or crypto and Web3.
Yeah, I guess
One
that
of
would
the
be
two.
crypto.
But that's also pretty cool to see finance having such a high representation that, okay, React Native
Yeah.
I
can be
bet you there's a lot of
secure.
finance companies that don't even like speak publicly about using React Native, but their developers are taking the survey.
That makes
just
sense.
ratted them out.
Absolutely. Skip that. They talk about what platforms you target, and
And
not
Android,
that
iOS, and
surprising
web
here.
are
Yeah.
pretty dominant.
Android and iOS 96 and 94% respectively. So people are pretty much almost always targeting mobile when they're using React Native. Web at 22.5%, which is a pretty healthy percentage. And then we have like a very tiny, 5% Mac OS, 3.4% Windows, Android TV is 2.6%, TV OS. So still the vast majority are using it for mobile and web with a little bit of Mac OS and Windows. and TV.
Well, TV is such a targeted platform. Like,
Yeah,
there's
it
very
is.
few apps that you actually need to use on your TV.
There's a lot of interaction, gesture differences between mobile and TV that just, I guess, makes it tougher.
This one I think is pretty interesting as well. What desktop OS are the developers using? Mac OS 80%.
I mean, Xcode is the large contributor to that.
Mm-hmm.
Expo is making it easier to use Windows with EAS, but yeah, it's mostly just easier to have Mac infrastructure to build iOS apps.
I wonder if 12% are just all the Microsoft engineers for Windows.
What's the count on that?
Yeah, let's check. 288. So there's probably a few others.
Yeah.
Yeah, 154 using Linux as well.
And then
so
6% on Linux. We
Yeah,
see you.
yeah.
We don't understand you, but we see you.
Another one is how to use React Native, whether it's professionally, as a hobby, or as a student. And professionally, it looks like it's the vast majority, 87%. And a few use it just as a hobby, 8%, and a few students as well. But most people who filled out the survey are using React Native professionally. Makes sense.
At the bottom of this page, the developer background tab, Stephen Moynes asked some of the React Native community to share their opinions about the results. And there's like this nice little blurb at the bottom. I'm not going to read it. Every single one of these pages has some of these. I urge all the listeners to take a moment and just kind of go through all the different pages and read these quotes, because they do provide a little deeper insight into some of these results. And I think that's very helpful to have these.
Yeah, and speaking of which, in the next section, state management, I was the one who was asked.
Somebody I
to do that
recognize
one.
was featured at the bottom.
Yes, yeah. They had to bug me a few times, which I'm not proud of, but I did eventually get it in there. Doesn't sound like me at all.
No. And that page would, of course, be state management.
The state management one is really cool because they have this like chart, interactive chart that you can hover over that shows you last year versus this year. Usage, retention, interest, and awareness. Make sure you're on the right tab. We didn't just do this whole section on the wrong tab and then realize we were on the wrong tab, of course. So yes, one of the interesting one is, of course, React like hooks and this.state and whatever. That's at like 97, 98%. But Redux, talk about Redux.
So Redux had a huge drop, but it looks like that's because Redux Toolkit was not included in the survey choices last year and was included this year. And so I think a lot of the people that answered Redux last year must have been using Redux Toolkit because the plain Redux went down a lot.
And Redux
and Redux Toolkit
made that jump to like third place.
Yeah, is third place behind React, just like plain React hooks and state, and then plain Redux, and then Redux Toolkit. So there's a clear state management favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this React hooks is kind of like, who doesn't use React hooks even if you're using some other state? Like you're
Right.
going to always use something like that.
Right. I mean, it's at 98%. I mean, people use React. That's how React works.
I'm interested to know
it's
what those
fundamental.
I wish they
2%.
had just put like only React
Right.
hooks. Like if that had been
Exactly.
it. Like,
And
obviously
even
you're going to use it, but
2%, the 2% of people that said they don't use hooks in this .state, I'd like to talk to them and just see how they managed to do that, or if they just put everything in their other state, so like Redux or TanStack query, whatever it may be, and use that exclusively.
Yeah, there's not really a good measurement here of people who only use React, React state or
React
context.
React Query is kind of a weird inclusion here because it's not really state management. It's a little bit more like, synchronizing with server, but it does have a state management component. So I guess that makes sense, 55%. But you can put it with other things like Redux and whatnot. There's also Apollo client, which is kind of like a whole other, thing. It is also declined a little bit, gone from 42 down to 38%. Zustand, huge rise in popularity, went from 22%.
Which is funny because the way that graph is
37.
animated, it looks like it's going down, but
Yeah.
I know it's not.
it's
that's
not.
true.
It's because Redux Toolkit jumped the list.
Yeah, exactly, and kind of pushed everything down. But Zustand's actually gone up, and I talk about that in my blurb at the bottom, where I basically say that Zustand, Zustand it's familiar. It looks like Redux, which is one reason I don't like it. Sorry, Zustand people. And then you have things like MobX, Jotai, MobX State Tree, which of course I'm one of the maintainers of, and we use here at Infinite Red. And then way down at the bottom, we've got recoil and X-State. I made a little comment about X-State. It has really, really high interest and really low usage. So it's like everybody's like,
Ooh,
oh yeah, X-State, that's
sounds
a cool idea. I would love to use that someday. And then they don't use it.
Oh no.
That's funny.
Sorry, David, if you're listening to this. But yeah, that's unfortunately where it's been. And yeah, I gave a blurb at the bottom talking about how Redux is slipping a bit, but Redux Toolkit has given new life to the project and whatnot. So moving on to navigation. So this one with the usage, again, you have retention, interest, usage, and awareness.
The big winner, Expo Router, went from
huge.
12% to 40%
Yeah.
in terms of usage.
It helps that it existed in 2023 and not so much in 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, it had
I
existed
guess
enough
like
to be
a
on
really
the
early
list.
version.
It was
It was
Yeah.
beta, I believe, or V1
alpha.
alpha.
If I remember right, it was like alpha. Like
Expo Router went from like beta to version 3 last year, I think.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's very stable now.
And the one that's bleeding users is React Native Navigation by Wix.
Yeah, React Navigation is so ubiquitous.
Some people still use React Router, interestingly. And then there's a new one on the list, Solito.
So you may use multiple. I know on cross-platform projects in the past, I've used React Navigation alongside React Router if we have a web component.
yeah.
React Navigation for web has gotten better, so we didn't do that on our current project, but I've done it in the past.
Yeah.
So it could be people using React Router for their website.
I'm disappointed to not see the one that I started my React Native career with, React Native Router Flux. It's no longer on there.
Same here. We were React Native Router Flux people too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was just a
That's
wrapper
true.
around, I think, React
Not
Navigation.
even on the list
technically.
anymore.
How many people in the audience have never heard of React Native Router Flex? Probably a majority
Yeah.
have not even heard of it.
Because React
Well,
Navigation.
it was like the choice.
it.
It was the only choice. And then React Navigation, I remember when it came out and it was
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah, that's right. Technologies with less than 10% awareness are not included.
Oh, that's probably where
there
it
you
is.
go. Now, Evan Bacon, who of course is the maintainer and creator of Expo Router, gave the blurb at the bottom of the navigation section. So go check that out for Evan's thoughts. I wanted to take a look at the graphics and animation side of things because this one tends to be something that is, I don't know, it's just a popular topic. Like people like talking about animations. That's kind of the fun part of it.
Looks like a lot of them saw some improvements.
I think every single one of them went up in usage, but pretty much kind of stayed the same.
React Native Skia had a big jump.
That was probably the biggest mover between the years. With React Native and Reanimated by Software Mentioned, that's kind of
Maybe
at the
it's
top.
an indication that more people are just incorporating animations into their apps in general.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the behemoth here is definitely Reanimated, 86%.
Yeah.
Like everybody uses Reanimated because it's really good.
It is
It's
really good.
Very performant. It's also interesting to
Yeah.
see the React Native animated API go from 77 to 81%.
And that's the one that's built in.
That's the built-in one. Yeah. And I don't
Yeah.
remember hearing or reading of any updates to it as far as like performance goes. Because I know between 22 and 23, Reanimated had the jump to V3.
Yes.
And V3 was a big rewrite. And I believe V3 was also getting new architecture compatible. So they had some like really cool updates to it.
Yeah.
And
We had Shishtuff on React Native Radio talking about
yeah,
React Native Reanimated
yeah, exactly.
3 before it came out.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so that's interesting to see the core React Native animated kind of get more love from the community.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes down from there. We've got Lottie, which actually has 64% usage. I didn't realize so many people use Lottie. Skia made a big jump up to 27%. Modi, 3JS, React Native Animatable, Fiber, and ExpoGL. They all made a little bit of improvement in their usage, which is pretty cool.
More animations overall.
Debugging and profiling. Now we need more tools here. So this is a fun one, and we have.
I love
at least
the one that's on top.
debugging.
It makes me happy.
I know. Don't spoil it yet. we have some plans to make more episodes about debugging. We did one about the dev menu, which I think is a really good episode. You should go listen to it. But there's a lot of stuff on here that we need to do actual React Native Radio episodes about. But without further ado, what's number one on the debugging tools?
My
Robin?
favorite, console logs.
Console logs.
53% say they use but I mean, who doesn't? At least
No, it's 75%. Sorry, I had it on the wrong tab here.
percent of questions. 70. That just means you can pick more than one, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
I'm proud to say that I did check this box.
Yep.
And I'm also proud to say that right before coming on to record, I did open a pull request that adds a console warning to one of our open source packages. So here we are.
You're doing your part.
I'm doing my
You
part
can't
to the
go
community.
wrong.
Exactly. We need
can't go
console
wrong.
log.
It's classic. It's just like fundamental debugging methodology is putting log statements in. Now, are there additional tools beyond that you should know how to use? Yes. But you should learn console log debugging first.
So even though Flipper has been more or less, I wouldn't say deprecated, but kind of gone away from, it's still at number 2 at 52%. And then we have like the in-browser Chrome DevTools is 51%. And then there's Expo's Chrome DevTools, 40%.
The fact that there are
almost 40%.
3 different versions of Chrome DevTools on this list should tell you kind
there's
of
one
what the
for
problem
Hermes.
is with debugging right now.
Now, this one is good. Native debugging using Xcode or Android Studio, 37%. I think that's actually a pretty good one to have in your toolbox, knowing how to use Xcode's debugging in Android Studios as well. And then there's the React Native debugger, which is, I think, and the React DevTools. I think this is going to change in the next
Yeah, I
year,
am so
in my
curious to see the 2024 version of this.
Now, at the bottom, but still a pretty strong 15%.
Hey, we made the list.
Is Reactatron. And if you haven't tried Reactatron, you need to go check it out. It's something we maintain here at Infinite Red. We haven't really promoted it a lot. That's, I think, why a lot of people haven't used it. But
All
Reactatron
262
is
of you.
beloved.
We see you.
Is beloved by 15% of you. So go check it out. It's free. Just search for Reactatron and you'll find it. All right. There's some other interesting questions here, like what problems do you run into in general? What features do you use? The console log, I guess the console panel, network panel, and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on here. I would recommend people looking at it. And I think one person that's hopefully they're listening to this episode and cringing at my message about console log, Cedric Vin. He's mentioned multiple times how we should stop using console.log. But I apologize, Cedric.
Yeah, he came and gave a little talk to our team, actually, which was awesome, and gave us his opinions about the debugger. Cedric's fantastic. Fantastic engineer, works for Expo, and go check out his blurb at the bottom of the debugging profiling section. All right, next we have React Native tools. What does that mean? Well, the React Native Community CLI and Expo CLI, Ignite, EAS. So basically, like different command line tools, essentially, is what this is. Number one, actually, the Expo CLI took over number one. This is kind of a big deal, where the React Native Community CLI in 2022 dominated with 87%. That dropped to 61%. And Expo went from 69% up to 72%. So it took over number one.
I'm surprised also to see still 71% of people using Expo Go.
Yeah. Well, I use it all the time for like little demo apps for debugging things, like stuff where I don't need the native access. I just spin up a new Expo Go app. I've probably created more Expo Go apps than every other type of mobile app combined.
Expo Snack.
Then there's snacks, which are going up as well. So there's a lot of Expo here. And the upgrade helper apparently was not in the original survey, but it comes in at 56%. That's actually lower than I thought it'd be. Upgrade helper tends to be pretty cool. But I guess if you're using Expo, you don't need it. And then Ignite is at 12%. So again, making the list, doing our part.
That's 1% more than the previous year. Take that.
That is true. Yeah, it's growing a bit. And it also, so Ignite is one of those things that you'll use, but then you don't necessarily use it again, after you've used it to spin up your app. There are some tools that let you do that, but you don't have to. So because of that, 12%, I'll take that. That's pretty good. it is the most popular third-party, not Expo, not Meta, not React Native CLI, third-party boilerplate in CLI in the ecosystem, which is cool. And then there's RNX Kit and the React Native test app, which is mostly used by people who are building libraries or contributing to React Native itself. And that 8% actually lines up with React Native contributors. So that might be part of it.
There you go.
There's a lot of really, really good charts on the rest of this page.
Yeah, a lot of good information here. Colin Gray, who's a good friend of mine, I've known him for over 10 years. He was on
the show.
React Native Radio. Yeah.
He also was a
Go
speaker
listen
at
to his
Chain React.
episode.
Yeah. We're good friends with
Yeah,
Colin.
fantastic guy. He works at Shopify, and he talks a lot about the different tools here like Expo and whatnot. And he mentions Orbit. So go check out Orbit.
I tweeted about Orbit recently. It's a very
Expo
good
Orbit.
tool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the Expo tool. It basically gets rid of you needing to go to the Expo Dev dashboard in your browser, and it just creates what's it called? An icon at the top of your
Menu bar.
It fixes the
click
question
icon,
of
yeah.
how do I open my simulator again?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
It does all that
Xcode
way.
makes it surprisingly difficult to open a simulator if it's not open.
Yeah.
And the next section is pretty interesting.
What is
JavaScript TypeScript balance.
Well, because it's a scale from
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, the next section.
Yeah, this is interesting. JavaScript TypeScript balance between 100% JavaScript to 100% TypeScript, and then everything in between.
The majority are on 100% TypeScript.
Yeah, it's leaning towards that aspect of it. I think
58.6%.
I mean,
100%
anytime I
TypeScript.
have to go back and use plain JavaScript, it's painful.
I guarantee you this 18.4% is like, oh, my configuration file is not in TypeScript, so I'm going to mark the 90% instead of 100%. It's always the
That's a
pedantic
programmer
people
thing
like
to
that.
do.
Exactly.
went
Just
on
add those two things
They went
together.
on their GitHub for their project and saw what the
Right,
what
they
the
literally
balance
look at
was,
the-
and they went
Yeah.
for that. Yeah, I could see that.
They're like, no, I have some image files too. 50%, 50-50 was actually 5%. That's kind of an interesting one. And then, 5% just said 100% JavaScript. Get rid of this TypeScript. We don't want
The
it.
people who are at 50-50 are on their way to 100. They're just not there.
One would
Next
hope.
year.
One would
Next
hope.
year.
Yeah. Package managers. This one's fun. So Yarn still top dog here with 72%. NPM, just bare NPM is 55%. And then we've got the three other options, which are
14
PNPM,
14%
Bun,
are
and
already
then
using
Yarn
Bun.
version 2.
Wow, yeah,
Yeah, already 15% Bun. That's pretty
good.
cool.
That's great adoption.
Go listen to our bun puns
Yeah.
from our bun
The
episode.
Bun episode is good. And it's my opinion that you should be using Bun for a package manager. Maybe not as a runtime yet, but as a package manager, it's just awesome. Starter templates. So we have create Expo app. No surprise there. React Native init, create React Native app, and then our own Ignite CLI comes in as at fourth. And then there's create T3 Turbo, which is Theo's thing that supports React Native. I expect Dan Stepanov's create Expo stack to show up next year, because that's one that has been kind of coming onto the scene more recently. And I think you can use that to actually create an Ignite app as well. It will reach out to Ignite CLI under the hood and do that. So that's pretty cool.
We have to mention we're getting pretty long, but we have to mention the resources page because it features none other than the React Native Radio podcast, which
That's
we were
right.
very excited about.
Yes, totally. So if you scroll down to podcasts and go to percentage of question respondents, React Native Radio by Infinite Red, 71.5%. Thank you all for making us
Thank you for taking the
top
survey.
React Native podcast out there. Then, of course, the React Native Show podcast by Callstack, which we've done a collaboration with. Those folks are fantastic. Go check them out as well. And then Simon Grimm has created Rocket Ship, and he has been putting out some really good content. He is third. We also have Syntax, which is not specifically a React Native podcast, but people listen to it for React Native content. The Changelog, similar. And PodRocker by LogRocket is the lowest one on the list there with 10%. But yep, 71.5% of people who responded chose React Native Radio. However, not very many people listen to podcasts. It's about 24% of the developers. So that is something to keep in mind. Those of you who listen to the podcast are well ahead of everybody else.
There's also a familiar name under video creators. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, I showed up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna
Code Quest.
I'm not gonna try and claim that the 7 people are not all from Infinite Red, but
So that's your answer,
That
Jamon.
very well may be.
There's your answer.
That
Only
very-
7 people from IR filled the survey out.
No, because I know that a lot of people at IR don't watch my videos. So
Well, there you go. 7 people do.
yes, I appreciate those 7 people who said that they watch my videos. I should put out more videos, but been a little busy. So the very top was William Candillon, who does some really great content. We have Theo as number 2. Simon Grimm again coming in. Cataline, who is an awesome dude. Love Cataline. I have actually loved Cataline. I've actually hung out with him quite a bit at conferences. He's such a fun guy. And then Vadim and Primogen Fireship, who does a little bit of React Native content, but Fireship is arguably the top developer YouTuber out there. And then there's a few others as well. Jack Harrington, who came to Chain React.
I was happy to see Matt
yeah.
Pocock on the list.
Oh yeah, Matt Pocock.
I'm surprised he's
showing
not
up
higher.
as
He
well.
has some really great TypeScript content.
He does. He just doesn't talk about React Native all that
That's
often.
true.
And then on the people side, number 1, Evan Bacon. That's well deserved. Who people follow, for React Native news. Evan is of course a wealth of React Native content and knowledge. And then a surprise number 2, which I love, Mark Rasavi, our good friend Mark. He came in at number 2 with 6.3%. And then William, again, number 3. Number 4, I don't know why anybody would put this guy, but Jamon Holmgren.
Jamon Holmgren, that guy.
Yeah,
I think I've heard
don't
of
know.
him.
Few people, I guess. I checked it by mistake. And then Fernando Royo also there. Cataline again. Theo again. Lorenzo showed up on this list, which is cool. Not just .dev.
Lots of familiar names.
Cedric Von Putin, we've already talked about him. Brent Vatney, of course, from Expo. And then
Christoph Majera.
Christoph,
Yep.
Sebastian Lorber, Matt Pocock
Yep.
again.
Lots of good stuff. Last one I really want to talk about is whether React Native is moving in the right direction or not. And last time we had agree strongly at 25%, agree at 57%, and then, 15% neutral, etc. That all of those numbers got better.
Yeah.
So agree strongly went up to 32%, agree 53%, neutral 11.9%, disagree 2.3%, and only 0.3% said disagree strongly. Those were the 0.3% of survey respondents who were Flutter developers who came in to click the buttons.
Mess
I
our
think.
survey.
And there's other really cool stuff in there.
Going in the right direction.
Yes, absolutely. So we need to wrap this up. Go check out the survey. So much good stuff here. Sorry to our editors for how long we went on this one.
There's a line from the conclusion I want to highlight because it really sums it all up, which is that the current state of React Native is stable, but definitely not boring.
I love it.
So
Stable, not boring.
I can't wait for the 2024 survey. I love this framework and this community. And
So great.
yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
As always, thanks to our production team with editor Todd Worth, our assistant editor and episode release coordinator, yours truly, Jed Bartosky, our director of marketing, Justin Husky, and our guest coordinator, Derek Greenberg. Our producer and host is Jamon Holmgren, and executive producers and hosts are Robin Hines and Mazen Chame. Thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Red. Check us out at infinite.red/React Native. A special thanks to all of you listening today. Make sure to subscribe to React Native Radio wherever you get your podcasts.